And I'm going to hand it back to Carrie to talk about who's completing the form.
Sure. So the FAFSA, the Better FAFSA last year changed their process a little bit. In the past, students and families could file the FAFSA with one form, and the parent and student could log into that one form individually. But now it's really a roles-based process. So when a person logs in with their FSA ID, they're given a welcome page, and then they're asking how they're starting this form, if they're starting as the student or the parent. And the student has their set of questions, and if the parent's invited, they go in and they will answer their questions. If it were a spouse, that would also come up and say if a spouse was needed, they would say spouse. So contributor was a term that came up last year, and the contributor is really the person who's required to contribute information to the form. It is not something that means that person who put their information down has to pay any amount. Certainly, that's something that families should be working out amongst themselves. But for dependent students, it's the student and the parent, and sometimes it can be very confusing for dependent students as to which parent they should be using. And so new for this year, this parent contributor wizard tool that was in the FAFSA originally is now available on the FSA website. You don't have to get into the FAFSA to get to it. And so people can use that and kind of answer a series of questions, and then it would come up and say which parent's information needs to be on the FAFSA. So that's a very helpful tool that's now available before people even can begin their FAFSA. And so traditionally, let me say this, dependent students invite parents as contributors, and independent students may invite a spouse as a contributor if that's appropriate and they need to do that. What I will tell you is that at VSAC, when we have been working with students, dependent students and their FAFSAs, what we have found is that there were a large number of errors that happened when students invited their parents without their parents with them. And the errors were sometimes a misspelling of name. It would, and not that they didn't know how to spell their parents' name, it's just like data entry, or misentering a social security number, or misentering a date of birth. The minute that happens, inviting the contributor fails. And so we saw a lot of issues with that last year. That was a pretty common error. It was not necessarily an issue with the Better FAFSA. It was hard to tease that out initially. But what we sometimes are encouraging, and the National College Attainment Network actually did a training for community-based organizations. They actually also recommended that if you can have the parent invite the student, what we find is that the parents tend to know the student's information a lot better than the students know their parents' information. So just a little life hack for you when it comes to the FAFSA.